Right then folks, Jacob here. Today we're going to be talking about the Idris, all three variants, those being the Idris-m, Idris-p, and the not so well known K variant. Now of course we'll get onto that and the other variants later on. However, before we touch on the ship and its variants, we'll talk first about Aegis dynamics as a whole, the history, the system of which they're based in. If you wish to skip ahead, please see the chapters. I honestly do kind of ramble, so the chapters might not be the most accurate. Of course, I'll say ahead of time at least once. This video will contain speculation in some areas, so just of course to be aware of that. However, moving on, Aegis Dynamics is in fact as a result of two separate firms, those firms being the Earth-based Aegis Macro Computing and the Devian-based Dynamic Production Systems, of course resulting in Aegis Dynamics as we know it. To me, it would seem Aegis is like the kind of like the technological side, and the dynamics more the sort of materials side of things, or like the actual physical making of the ship sort of thing. And honestly, the names kind of give it away. Aegis Macro Computing and Dynamic Production Systems, kind of slightly give it away. But so currently the company has, or the firm, whatever, is based out of the Devian system. This system is currently quite far away from the current and only system Stanton at this time. The finishing of Pyro will get us one system closer to Devian via the Cano system, then to Devian. This is via small and medium jump points, however. So for large jump points, it would be accessed via, so you go to Stanton, then to Magnus, then to Ellis, then to Killian, and finally Devian. So definitely some time before we get to see the home base of Aegis Dynamics. However, it does say in the lore that this is the corporate base for Aegis Dynamics, and there are building ships in other systems, like the Idris was built in the Idris system, I believe, and then they've built things in UEE shipyards as well. So I don't think they actually have an actual place where they build ships at present, but of course we'll touch on that more later on. Aegis Dynamics was of course one of the major military contracts around the Mesa era and grew as a firm entirely around the First Tevaran War due to Ivar Mesa and his support for the firm at the time. Eventually Aegis Dynamics had to adapt as they lost the majority, if not all, military contracts due to the end of the Mesa era in 2792. This was over 100 years after the introduction of the Aegis Javelin, the Javelin being the destroyer ship of 480 meters in length. So as a result of the end of the Mesa era, the Mesa era is like an entirely separate thing. It's just basically war is the era of like over a 300-year duration where a certain family was the president, so to speak. But of course that's all an entirely lore related thing. We won't touch on that here, but essentially Aegis eventually weren't making military ships and they were focused entirely on civilian based ships, such as the Idris-p, this being introduced in 2875. And this is apparently 80 or so years after losing their military contracts. So to me, the lore needs a bit of work, because I'm pretty sure a company's not just going to sit in its ass for 80 years, not have anything to do. So, I mean, get real. So, of course, as we mentioned, they've been producing the Idris-p over the last, well, what was it going to be, now 60 odd years. So they've also been doing the Retaliator base. There was, of course, a Retaliator bomber thing. I can't remember the name. And that's essentially just a very role-focused thing, whereas the Retaliator base is literally just a shell. And these have been used as dropships, gunships, and virtually anything. But the Retaliator base isn't yet in the game, and they've been working on this ship for some time, including the Redeemer as well. The Redeemer is not an Aegis ship, but or maybe it is, I can't remember. The other ship that they've been working on is the Starfarer Gemini. Now, this ship technically isn't an Aegis ship, but it's more co-produced with Aegis Dynamics, and it is in fact sold under their name. But it is, of course, in fact, the MISC ship, the Starfarer Gemini being an Aegis Dynamics ship. So that is Aegis dynamics as a whole, the history, etc. Now, of course, we'll start on the actual Idris, specifically the Idris-m, of course, given that this was the first variant and also the oldest variant. This was pretty much the cream of the crop as far as capitals are concerned at the time of production, bearing in mind the Javelin came an extra 120 years after this, 140 years after this. Honestly, the Idris is insane with its huge size 10 front-mounted mass driver weapon, decent array of manned turrets, not to mention the shield strength, that being 33% more than that of the Kraken. Of course, if you're interested in the Kraken, see the annotation for that video. Let's not forget that, of course, the actual Idris has armor, unlike the Kraken. The Kraken is virtually just the ship and the shield. Compared to the Kraken, the Idris is 27 meters shorter in length, 22 meters wider, and 18 meters shorter in height, making the Idris dimensions 242 meters length, 233 in the case of the Idris-p, due to the missing size 10 gun, and 127 centimeters, 128 meters beam, and 46 meters height. The Idris, as far as components are concerned, are all the same for each variant. This includes a large radar, 6 medium computers, 2 capital power plants, 6 medium and 2 capital coolers, 12 medium and 2 capital shield generators, 2 capital fuel intakes, a single capital fuel tank, quantum drive, jump module, and quantum fuel tank. All thrusters for all variants of the Idris are the same. There is no ship page for the Idris-k, my assumption being for the entirety of this video that the stats are the same as the Idris-p, other than that of what the upgrade kit provides / removes. Given the Idris-p is slightly faster, I don't see why it's slightly faster. I do recall it having some armor removed from the Idris-p, from the Idris-m, but I don't recall exactly where that's stated. I guess that's why it's faster. I mean, I don't see them adding some extra thrusters onto it, but maybe they did, but apparently they didn't, but whatever, we'll get to that at some point. So, of course, the Idris-m has quite a significant amount of weaponry, including, of course, a size 10 ship-to-ship gun we briefly touched on. Furthermore, the Idris-m features remote size 4 ballistic turrets, with 2 turrets per mount and 2 mounts in total. Also, a manned size 7 laser cannon with 2 turrets per mount, with only the single mount on the ship. This would do nicely for taking down like relatively large ships. You're looking at things like maybe a Caterpillar or a Carrack. And lastly, we have manned size 5 laser repeaters with 2 per mount, with a total of 5 mounts. So that's 5 individual people to control them. For missiles, the ship carries a total of 10 size 5 missiles, with a rack size of 8, with a single rack, meaning 1 missile at a time. Moving on to the Idris-p. The Idris-p strips a number of items from the Idris-m, of course including the size 10 gun, hence the length reduction. That of course being at the front. The size 7 manned laser cannon and the size 5 missile launcher are removed from the Idris-p. The Idris-p does gain other weapons as replacements, such as 2 additional remote size 4 ballistic turrets, effectively doubling that of what the Idris-m has. The Idris-p also gains an additional size 5 laser repeater, assumingly in place of where the size 7 laser cannon previously was on the Idris-m, because logic. The Idris seems to have like the same amount of firepower than the Polaris at this point. So it seems that it's meant to sort of get in and amongst the fight as well and sort of brawl a little bit. But the Polaris isn't really meant to brawl, it's meant to kind of like hit a javelin and then get out. Otherwise, the Polaris will go. So I'm not sure why the Polaris has all the guns that it has. But anyway, if you're interested in the Polaris video, I have touched on that, so have a look at the annotation for that if you're interested. Now, of course, we're going to move on to the Idris-k. Essentially, the Idris-k is an upgrade to the Idris-p. This kit provides a number of items that you can put on the ship, meaning that it's an option to do so. The kit provides access to a size 10 laser beam weapon, similar enough to the Idris-m weapon in regards to size, but that's as far as the similarities are concerned. However, the laser beam has pros and cons as compared to the Idris-m mass driver weapon. such as the fact that the Idris-m requires ammo in order to shoot. The laser beam, of course, wouldn't require ammo, it just requires power, but of course it's going to require a lot more power. Typically the laser beams don't do as much damage, but they have a higher fire rate, so that is kind of cool in itself. It's kind of like your own choice, do you want this or not? In my opinion, I'd honestly just purchase an Idris-p, and then when the K upgrade kit is in game, you can just purchase that and then take whatever you want from it. I mean, it's like a €250 or RSA dollar price tag on the upgrade kit. So, like, would you really? Of course, the Idris-k is still going to have the additional maneuverability and cargo as the Idris-p provides over the Idris-m. Now, I'm not too understanding of this, which I'm going to touch on very shortly. The internal layout, as far as we're aware, will be the same for all three variants. Starting off on the lowest levels of the ship, we have an Argo hangar. For those that aren't aware, Argo is its own sort of ship manufacturer with like drop ships, and there's another variant of the Argo thing which I can't remember, which I might annotate just here. There is of course a gravity room, which of course controls gravity, whether you turn on or off the gravity. There's the hangar itself. The hangar, as far as lore is concerned, it says it holds 3 ships, but you can fit 32 arrows in there, which is a lot. Alongside the hangar, of course, there is a control room and a pilot ready room, a control room for opening the hangars and stuff. I mean, I don't know why you just couldn't have like a button just on the side of the hangar, but apparently you need an entire control room for it. So, sure, okay. There's a pilot ready room where basically a pilot takes a ship before he goes out to fly. And then on the mid deck, you're starting from the front, you have escape pods. I mean, those are the only ones on this layout, so, I mean, if you're in the bridge, you're kind of screwed because you can't get to the escape pods because it takes you half an hour to run there, whatever. There's, of course, the medical bay, a missile room, captain quarters, and an XO room, I guess an executive office thing. There's a general bathroom, besides that a mess hall, and then there's regular sleeping quarters, and then 2 separate bathrooms. There's, of course, the cargo bay, apparently a lift room, not a lift, just like an actual lift room. Okay. There's of course the engine room, the armory, the shooting range, the brig, the cells, and a guard room for the cells, whatever that's for. Lastly, on the top deck, you have the main bridge, the lower bridge, and compartment room, or component room rather. And that's a lot, and so it should be. I saw the missile room and instantly started thinking that logically speaking, that's where the extra cargo would come from as far as the Idris-p is concerned. And what that brings to mind is that the Idris-k perhaps shouldn't necessarily have the extra cargo depending on whether you choose to have the missile launchers fitted. That is pretty much what I think of the Idris as a ship. Now, would I have one? Would I consider buying one? I think so. I mean, I have the monies. I have the $1,500 in credits in the game to buy one. Now, would I buy one? I would consider it, but it's not going to be released until like maybe a year or 2 years. So I'm not sure what I think about actually having it. I mean, I would consider buying one in like November for the $1,500 that it asks for, and then just melting it again straight away, and then buying back other things that I wanted, and then just have that in the buyback. I would probably consider doing that. But it's just a question of, will the game be launched before the actual capital ships are in the game or not? That's the one question. And that is, of course, the question I'll leave you with to answer. If you're interested in a giveaway, as long as you've made comments on any of my videos between now and when I reach 250 subscribers, you'll be entered into a draw for $25 of store credit for the RSI site. Thank you ever so much for watching. Today's video sponsor is the like button for the glorious YouTube algorithm. That will of course allow this channel to grow with your support. Obviously don't forget to comment or subscribe if you haven't already. If you aren't aware, I generally upload 3 to 5 times a week, so be sure to check back. My name is Jacob. Thank you and goodbye for now.